Welcome to a very wet Hungaroring for the 13th race this year within the Formula Renault Eurocup. Cars making their way round to the grid, but the heavens have opened in the last hour or so. We've had a round of the French Formula 4 Championship, rather truncated as the rain started to fall, and it has carried on falling. David Addison trackside, bedraggled marshals, teams, camera crews, grid girls, everybody else out there getting ready for what I fear is going to be a safety car start. And on the formation lap, we're losing people. Hugo de Wilde off in the gravel, and he's not the only one either, because also we have lost off the road Brad Benavides in car number 61. So even driving to the grid, the weather conditions are so vile that people can't keep it on the road, and they're on a wet tyre, obviously. So it's a real problem for the drivers. That is the scene as they leave the pit lane. Not only have you got limited traction, you've got limited visibility with the spray hanging in the air. Those, I don't think, are going to get much use today. Slick Hankook tyres. You're an optimist to take those to the grid, and the forecast is for this really for the rest of the day. So a few moments ago we were pondering whether it was going to be a safety car start. At the moment, if people are falling off even at a slow pace going round to the grid, is it going to start at all? Well, we'll keep you posted, and the race director will have a long look at this and try and ascertain how safe it is. But right now people have gone through the pit lane, and another one has gone off, including the championship leader, Oscar Piastri, number 1. So Oscar Piastri in the gravel bed. So Piastri, championship leader, multiple winner this year off the road. Hugo de Wilde off the road. Brad Benavides off the road. It's all happening seemingly at the same part of the circuit. But if you can get 2 into that gravel trap, you can get more. And this is not race pace. This is nothing like race pace. So this is the real concern now. What do we do? Do we delay the start? Do we get them out of the gravel? Does the start happen? If and when it does, it's going to have to be behind the safety car. But at turn 10, there is this drama. And the key to it all now, the main talking point, is that the championship leader, Oscar Piastri, is in that mix, in that gravel bed. Now, Piastri was only 5th on the grid. He had a great time last week at the Nürburgring, where he took 2 more race wins to go with the 2 that he took at Silverstone and 1 at Spa. But right now, he is hoping that there is a delayed start or even an aborted start so that he can get out of that gravel onto the grid. Hugo de Wilde is sitting tight as well, and the race director will, as I say, make a call shortly as to exactly what to do next. But at turn 10, there is drama. The grid is forming. Those that are surviving the lap are heading to the grid, but it's going to be without at least 3 cars thus far. Alexander Smoljar is the man on pole position. They qualified this morning and it was dry then, but now, as you see, wet tyres for everybody. And on the outside of the front row of the grid is sorry, I should say, there is a pole position driver, Victor Martins, on the outside of the grid. Alexander Smoljar lining up for 2nd on the grid, forgive me, on the inside line. Victor Martins trying to make amends for a very disappointing 2nd race last week at the Nürburgring, when the car didn't get into the race at all. Had problems at the end of the formation lap with the turbo boost. These are 1800cc turbocharged engine single-seaters this year, the new generation of Formula Renault Eurocup car. And Victor Martins, who had a win earlier on in the season at Monaco, went to the Nürburgring as the joint championship leader with Oscar Piastri and lost a truckload of points to him. So Piastri has 197 to the 157 now of Martins. He needs to fight back here. Teams going very much now for a full wet setup. But are we going to end up with a depleted grid, or can those cars be put back onto the circuit and then drive to the grid and be allowed to take the start of the race? There are some very bedraggled people there, that is for certain. And the start process will go through, but it's going to have to be a safety car start. I would have thought. They've had no wet running all weekend. So the grid formed with Victor Martins on pole position, Alexander Smoljar 2nd on the grid, 3rd on the grid, Lorenzo Colombo from Caio Collet, Amaury Cordeel 5th, and Oscar Piastri 6th on the grid, but now sitting in the gravel bed, the championship leader. So hoping that as the marshals are there on the scene, they can snatch him out of the way. He's out of the car, which does not bode well. So Oscar Piastri then, the championship leader, looking as though this is not, therefore, going to be the start of the race. He walks away. Hugo de Wilde, significantly, sitting in the car as though he is hopeful that he might be able to get back onto the circuit. But Oscar Piastri's chances at the moment are not looking awfully bright at all. Right, let's go to the grid and hear from Tariq Al-Said, Renault sporting manager, as we have a delayed start, incidentally. He is with Nicky Shields.
Well, Tarek Al Saeed, I would normally say it's wonderful to see you here at the front of the grid, but I'm not sure it is. These are rather treacherous conditions. What's going to happen in the race?
Yeah, it's quite a big change from yesterday when it had a sunny day. Yeah, this is going to be a bit hectic considering the rain here. Probably safety car first, and then we'll see how it goes. But we already have 2 cars that ran off the track during the installation laps, so safety first. So we'll see what's going to happen.
I mean, seriously tricky conditions, especially for these young drivers, you know, still learning to drive in these conditions, but a good test for them, I suppose.
Yeah, it's always good to have races, you know, in wet condition. You can really see which driver is really, really good at it. We had a race already in Monza in the wet condition, and here it's a bit different from Monza. A lot of spray in Monza. We'll see here how it goes, but it's always impressive races anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much. Enjoy the race.
Now, just to recap, start delayed, partly because of the weather, but fundamentally the weather has created this situation where we've got cars skating off the road. They need retrieving. Come what may, they've got to be out of the gravel bed. But the significant point about Piastri is the championship leader out of his car. I do not believe, therefore, he's going to be allowed to get back in and come to the grid. Hugo de Wilde was sitting tight, which might have been a better idea. We'll wait and see what the officials are, under the rules, allowed to do. So start is delayed while the track is cleared of at least littered cars from the gravel beds. And the man at the back of the grid, just incidentally, Patrick Schott, there because he crashed towards the end of the qualifying session and it was red flagged. And if you cause a red flag in qualifying, you lose your lap times. Bang, you go to the back of the grid. So Patrick Schott has got work to do if and when we get up and running. But right now, as the rain continues to fall, it's looking pretty grim out there. Now, there's one school of thought, Hugo de Wilde out of his car as well. One school of thought says let people race, and it's up to the driver to decide how quickly they are prepared to go. Another school of thought, and Nicky has touched on it on the grid, they're young drivers, they're inexperienced drivers in most cases. They might need a little bit of guidance and a bit of protection. So therefore, do not let them go unless they've had a good few laps track experience, getting used to the conditions. Lorenzo Colombo there, 3 times a winner this season, driving for the MP Motorsport team. And Colombo lining up 3rd on the grid. So he's another man to watch, but again, part of the story of this race is going to be how many racing laps we get in, if and when. It's a tight timetable at the Hungaroring because it's not just Formula Renault that we have. There's also the Blancpain GT World Challenge Europe, penultimate race of the season, championship on the line there. And it may well be that this race has to be shuffled around in the timetable because of that, if we can't go racing just now. GT cars, arguably, safer propositions in the wet conditions, arguably. There's Kaya Collett. He lines up 4th on this grid. Collett, like Victor Martins, you'll have gathered this off the livery, part of the Renault Sport Academy. He's managed by Nicolas Todd, Jean Todd's son, part of his all-road management team. And, of course, all the cars this weekend, as they were last week, carrying recognition for the late Antoine Hubert, who came through the Renault Sport Academy, through Formula Renault into Formula 3, up into Formula 2. So Kaya Collett, surprisingly, despite his great pedigree, reigning French F4 champion, not a race winner this season. And I think, again, as I say, given his CV, that's a bit of a surprise to people. There is now this slightly depleted grid. So we have lost Oscar Piastri. We have lost Hugo de Wilde, winners both. And the 3rd car off, Brad Benavides. Number 18 is there, Amaury Cordeel. Gabriel Cordeel, his sports car racing elder brother. He drives for the MP Motorsport team, the Dutch team, Sander Dorsman's squad. And Cordeel, one of his better qualifying efforts, actually, to be 5th on the grid. But let's see whether he's going to be able to make that into a podium finish, which Cordeel has not thus far been able to achieve this year. I mentioned a while ago that they're on Hankook tyres. That's quite a coup for the Korean manufacturer this year because for so long, of course, French Championship, French cars, French tyre. Michelin has been the provider, but Hankook coming in this year. And now the wet will be put to the test. Alexander Smolya, the Russian driver, lining up 2nd on the grid, waiting the chance to go racing. He's with Nicky.
So we're down here on the front row of the grid with Alexander Smollier. Alexander, obviously not the ideal conditions you were hoping for today, trying to stay dry under the umbrella. But realistically, how much is this going to affect your race? How concerned are you about driving in such tricky conditions?
The conditions are really, really tricky. I did just a few laps, and honestly, it's quite undrivable. So at this point, I just hope to bring the car home and get some points.
How much experience have you actually had racing in conditions like this?
First time in conditions like that. Obviously, a lot of races and runs on a wet track, but on this wet track, it's my first time, I think.
Okay, Alexander, thanks very much, and have a good, safe race.
He did win in the wet at Monza, but that was wet and drying. The car's released after a few laps. You can see there it is going to be, as predicted, a start behind the safety car. And we are looking then at a 5-minute board, so the delay to get the cars out of the gravel, and we will go racing very shortly. Or at least we will get the race underway, I should say. Racing will come if and when the race director is happy, because the conditions for the moment precluding, I think, the opportunity to let the cars go, and we'll start to see when the cars are released, where the standing water is, if and where there is any grip whatsoever. Let's have a little look at how they line up, and indeed how they're going to be at the end of the first corner or so, first lap it should be. Victor Martin starts on pole, Alexander Smollier second on the grid. Lining up third is Lorenzo Colombo. There he is in the orange car for MP Motorsport. And fourth on the grid, Kyle Collett for our Ace GP. The front row, incidentally, MP and our Ace as well. So row 2 mirrors the front of the grid. The third row, Amaury Cordil for MP Motorsport. And then a gap where the our Ace GP car of Oscar Piastri is not to be found. So for the first 3 rows, mirroring MP on one side, our Ace on the other. The fourth row is a bit depleted as well. Hugo de Wilde for JD Motorsport should be where that big gap is. Frank Bird for Arden. Best qualifier for Arden in the session this morning is there. 8th. 9th on the grid is 31 Patrick Pasma. 10th on the grid is Alex Quinn, who made his debut in the championship last weekend at the Nürburgring. And those are the 3 Arden cars altogether. Xavier Lloveras there, he is about to have his first race at the Hungaroring. He will line up 11th, and then 12th on the grid in the white livery, Leonardo Lorandi. 13th, there is João Vieira, who has come back into racing this season. The next gap is that was initially occupied by Brad Benavides. Then we have Lucas Alejo Roy, who came into the series for M2 competition at Spa, and he's dropped in and out as the year has gone on since. And Federico Malvestiti, the Monza-born Italian, will line up 16th on the grid. 17th for the FA Racing by DriveX team. There in the blue livery, you can see Alex Kokosik, who we saw for the first time in the championship at the Nürburgring a week ago. He's got Kushmaini, who is 6th in the championship, lining up with him. Kushmaini having had a poor qualifying, so he's got work to do if and when we go racing here. And then the back row, Petr Potacek, who qualified well at the Nürburgring, had a shocking morning, and Patrick Schott, who lost his best lap times because of causing a red flag by going off the road. In the dry, in qualifying, he is at the very back of the grid. But as I say, the real significance now, Oscar Piastri not on the grid, championship leader, Victor Martins, championship rival, starting on pole. And it could be that he wins by default here, because if they just drive around behind the safety car to get a result, then he's going to get the points. Now, the race director, of course, would like this to be a proper race. The race will begin as soon as the cars now leave the line. So it's 30 minutes plus a lap, and the race starts as soon as the safety car leaves the line. The regulation lap is put on at the end, but we'll see whether that becomes relevant depending on what the conditions are like. The forecast is that it's going to be like this for the day from here on in, which gives lots of people a real headache. There's Alexander Smollier driving for our Ace GP, and just over his shoulder is Lorenzo Colombo. Those lights flashing, the rain light on the back of the car, the warning, which looks at the moment very bright indeed, but when there's that surrounded by the spray, it's a little less bright, but just, if not more, important to see. And it's the indication to the cars behind that there is a car in that gloom and they need to be mindful of it. Race on. 30 minutes begins, regulation lap at the end. And so now, as the cars set off, we will see exactly how bad these conditions are and whether or not anybody else skates off the road, because now you've got them all bunched up together. Alexander Smoljar there trying to partly get some warmth into the tyres, partly get out of the spray as well. Then you can see where he's going. Down towards turn 1, then they come through that right-hander, drop downhill. While all this is going on, spare a thought for our camera crew, for the marshals that are out in these elements as well, all the team personnel standing in the pit lane. In this type of racing, there's little you can do really when the race gets underway. And right now, umbrellas are the main focus of the mechanics' attention. The marshals with the yellow flags, the safety car boards, and so the cars remain in the grid formation, the grid order. Of course, there are going to be changes because of those gaps. So straight away, 1 or 2 are making up places, and Frank Bird is one of the beneficiaries. He's just gained 2 spots, for example, with the demise of Oscar Piastri. Great shame for the Melbourne-based racer, Melbourne-born driver, and Hugo de Wilde, who were ahead of Frank Bird on the grid. This the run up towards turn 4 into the second sector. This a part of the lap where track limit abuse has always been a factor, and race directors do take a very dim view of constant abuse. We had lots of people in different sessions this morning all being pinged for it. Then the cars sprint out of turn 5, short straight up to the chicane. And again here, there's a lot of curb that you can take, but to take too much, the officials will stamp upon you. So Victor Martins leads the way. They'll be getting feedback from what he can assess out on the circuit. The race director will be getting feedback from the safety car crew, saying really not good here. You can see it bouncing off the road, the rain falling so heavily now. So do we get to a point where the cars can be released? Do we get to a point where we get purely behind the safety car to half distance and a result can be declared? Watch this space, but not the circumstances that anybody really wants the weather to affect things. So out of the chicane, you've seen the cars go, then through the 8-9 sequence. The road opens up a little bit down towards the sharp right here at turn 11, and then down towards the stadium part of the circuit. So they're going behind the paddock now, down towards the kart circuit, and at this point through turn 13, so the road begins to climb uphill. Looking across at the marshal's post on the start line, on the timing line, and no suggestion of anything other than a yellow flag and a safety car board for now. So there, the race leader, Victor Martins, brings them across the line. The man on pole position there, Victor Martins, who came from the Formula Renault Eurocup last year. He was a double winner. He also drove in the occasional NEC races, runner-up 2 years ago in French Formula 4, and kept his hand in during the winter by taking part in the Formula 3 Asian Winter Series. Victor Martins, former French gymnastics champion as a child before he discovered karting and then car racing, picked up early by the FFSA, the French Federation of Motorsport, and became CIK FIA karting world champion, moved into car racing, but it's been a frustrating year. Yes, he's fighting for the championship lead, and actually this race does give him the opportunity to get back into contention within the championship, but that only one victory to his name, plus the non-start Nürburgring, a bit of a surprise, and that's why he's lost out to Piastri. But there are points here to be gained, 25 for the race win if it goes the distance. Murphy's Law for Martins probably dictates now that it's going to be a half points race, so he can't really climb back into that 40-point deficit too much, even if he were to stay out there and win it. So Victor Martins is the race leader, and Alexander Smoljar is the man behind him. He's another driver in his second season in Formula Renault Eurocup, although, make the point again, these are brand new cars for this year, so everybody coming into them with experience maybe of the circuits, yes, but not of the car. And Alexander Smoljar was 12th in the championship last year. Didn't take any wins, but he was a winner at Monza in race 2. He was a winner at Monaco in race 2. Very unlucky at Spa. Brilliant drive up through the field, only late race to get tagged by a spinning Malvestiti and roll. Alexander Smoljar lucky to get away with that, but it's a great shame because he was heading for a podium finish at the time. And on the countback, of course, he lost that. But he's shown very good pace this season. Running in third place, Lorenzo Colombo. He's another of the MP Motorsport drivers, another quick karter. Lots of Formula 4 experience in the Italian Championship. He then moved up through the German and into Euro Formula Open for a couple of races back in 2017. Euro Formula Open being the older style Formula 3 car championship that Jesus Barreca runs. he's another sophomore Formula Renault driver, 6th in the championship last year, Lorenzo Colombo, with a couple of poles, 5 podiums but no wins. Well, he's put that right already this year. Colombo taking 3 victories, and he runs in 3rd place. Kaio Collet is next, another excellent karter in his early days. Came from the UAE Formula 4 Championship in the winter months of 18 to get some experience into the French Championship, which he won. Also did some of the German rounds to keep his hand in as well, getting so used to more and more circuits. Kaio Collet this year has had as his best 3rd places, really, one of which came at Monaco, one of which came last time out at the Nürburgring, and he's had a 2nd as well, forgive me, at Spa. So he's been knocking on the door of a win, but it's not quite clicked in the way that you might have anticipated for him. It's been a frustrating season, not helped, of course, by the fact that his Renault Sport Academy fellow member, Victor Martins, has been a winner and has been joint championship leader, and he's still up there fighting for the title. After this weekend, they go to Catalonia at the end of the month, then to the Hungaroring, where they support the German GT Championship, and they finish the season in Abu Dhabi at the Yas Marina circuit. So Monza, Silverstone, Monaco, Paul Ricard, Spa, Nürburgring, Hungaroring, Barcelona, Hockenheim, Yas Marina, all excellent venues, all Grand Prix based, giving the drivers a good calendar, but also the experience of circuits that they hope they will be racing on in the future, be it in F3, F2, F1, they hope, maybe even in sports car racing. So the safety car is staying out. The race director continues to monitor this, and now, of course, you get to the point where the conditions aren't improving. So if the safety car is needed now, it will still be needed in, what have we got left, 22 minutes time, and therefore we get to a point where it's unlikely, you could argue, that the race will ever get going. Drivers, you can hear perhaps in the background as they accelerate, the engine notes shooting up as they struggle for traction, and the safety car team will also be radioing back and saying, look, it's getting better, it's getting worse, whatever they feel the track is like. It's Xavier Lloveras going through, currently in 9th place. Lloveras new to the Hungaroring, but he's had a decent enough season driving for GRS, the Global Racing Service team. Lloveras, another graduate of karting, into the Euro Formula Open and Spanish F4 Formula Renault Eurocup for a couple of seasons. It's been piecing together seasons of racing. He's also had a bit of GT racing experience, in fact, in GT4 as well on occasions last year. So Victor Martins heads up the hill. He's probably about the only person out there thinking, let's just drive around, just give me the points. But other drivers might be wanting to get on with the job. You can see how much standing water there is and the spray being washed aside. The car's cutting great grooves into the road as they come across the line, but I've got to say, it's not looking as though it's improving any here at the Hungaroring. Down through turn 1 they go, and 17 cars still circulating, although we had those dramas going to the grid since the race under controlled conditions got underway. Everybody has stayed on. Here is another look at how wet it is, and see the spray being generated. The wet tyres working overtime as the grooves try and cut through the water, find the traction, find the grip, and paddling through the approach there to turn 8 goes race leader Victor Martins. So 1/3 of the race done, and the safety car stays out here at the Hungaroring, and I still fear it is going to do so for some time to come. There through turn 5 goes the leading group, including number 18 of Amaury Cordeel. He started 5th on the grid. Cordeel, who's not really shone this season, but he is improving all the time. His pace is getting better and better. Another graduate of F4 from France, the UAE, the German, the Italian, the Spanish and the North European Zone Russian-based series. He's come through them all, learning about single-seater racing, learning about different circuits. So Cordeel, who was 10th in the F3 Asian Winter Series, actually the reigning Spanish F4 champion, won that last year and had a couple of wins on his way to taking the championship. So out of turn 11 they come. So 1/3 of the, in quotes, race completed, and as the field comes down towards, at the bottom of the hill there, turn 12, some going to a slightly different line, largely just so they can see out of the spray. Another lap done by the safety car. People going wide out of the hairpin, where, of course, if you run to the very outside, you often find a little bit more grip. Yellow lights are still flashing, safety car board, flags are still there. Pace might just be quickening a little bit, you know. They are running slightly faster as they come past the pits, only slightly. So down the hill comes the safety car into turn 2 here. There's turn 1 and turn 1A these days, because the exit at the first corner has a little kink, little right-hand kink, rather than being a constant radius arc. So turn 2 down the hill. Hungaroring, of course, that's been a Grand Prix venue since, what, 1986. It's had World Touring Cars, it's had the European Touring Car Series, FIA GT has been here in the past, as well as the iteration of Blancpain GT, and we are getting a red flag. Red flag is being shown, so things are not improving, and the race is being stopped. And that, I would imagine, is going to be that, because even if they sit on the grid for another 20 minutes, I think the rain is pretty much set in. Whether points are awarded, we'll have to wait and see, but they have, out of 30 minutes, done effectively 12, and a red flag brings it to a close on lap 5. So no racing laps thus far. Looking to see whether there is a legend on the screen saying session will not be resumed. Not yet, but it might come. So a totally, thus far, safety car afflicted race. It is now red flag. The race therefore is not going to resume. The confirmation has come on the screen. The race will not resume. So 4 laps behind the safety car. We are being told there will be half points awarded, but a podium will come if anyone wants to go and stand in the rain for 10 minutes. And Victor Martin's, there you go, I did predict this earlier on in the race. He wins it, but he only gets the half point, so his ability to chomp into the deficit to Oscar Piastri is reduced. And 12.5 points rather than the 25, frustratingly. So it helps to bring down that margin, but it is not, I'm afraid, going to have quite the same impact that he would have hoped. However, I think probably most drivers are just pleased to be coming back into the pit lane now. You heard what Alexander Smolyar said on the grid about how he's virtually undrivable, and the officials will say, we gave it a go, we took the cars out, we tried to get the race going, but the conditions were just against us, and so for fear of everybody aquaplaning off the road, the race stopped. It will not resume. Half points going into tomorrow then. So there, with the rain bouncing off the road, everybody comes down the pit lane, and we await Victor Martins, Alexander Smolyar and Lorenzo Colombo to make their way up to the podium. Kai Collett, 4th, will also be there because he's the winning rookie, as Victor Martins shakes his head, gets out of the car, and a second, in quotes, win of the season. And if ever you wanted to know the importance of qualifying, there it is, because it's grid order all the way to the line, except for those benefiting from the drivers falling off at the very start. Lorenzo Colombo out of his car to take 3rd place. And Victor Martin says, well, I suppose it's a win. The French driver then goes to talk to Lorenzo Colombo.
Did you see something in the track when you were running? No? What do you mean? Wait.
A discussion going on about something on the track, perhaps. So we might try and eavesdrop again if the drivers are there when they've taken off their crash helmets. Victor Martins then, with the result at 3 laps, is the winner from Alexander Smolyar, Lorenzo Colombo third, from Caio Collet, Amaury Cordeel fifth, and Frank Bird's best of the year sixth. Patrick Pasma seventh, ahead of Alex Quinn. Xavier Lloveras ninth from Leonardo Lorandi, and then João Vieira 11th, Lucas Eleco Roy 12th, Federico Malvestiti 13th from Alex Karkasik and Kush Maini. And behind them, Petra Potacek and Patrick Schott for 16th and 17th places. Those, the only other classified finishers, we of course never got into the race, Oscar Piastri, Hugo de Wilde and Brad Benavides, because they were the drivers that fell off on their way round to the grid. Okay, so let's hear the thoughts then of Victor Martins. He didn't have to do a great deal other than just use his webbed feet. He wins, he's with Nicky Shields.
Well, Victor, obviously this isn't the traditional way of winning a race, different circumstances, but some valuable points scored still today.
Yeah, obviously, it's a shame to not race, but yeah, it's actually too dangerous, and the aquaplaning was massive, so yeah, I think it's a good choice to do this. But yeah, I don't know how it will be for the points. I don't know if it will be half points or...
Half points, yes.
I don't know,
You'll get half points.
Yeah, I would have preferred to race actually, but...
Half points, and you didn't have to do any work for it.
Yeah,
well, you qualified on pole, I suppose.
Yeah. No, hopefully tomorrow will be dry or better like this. And yeah, just to have a clear race tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thanks very much. Well done.
So yes, half points for race winner Victor Martins, his second victory of the season. That's Lorenzo Colombo talking to his team, and Alexander Smolyar taking second position, so in front of the Formula Renault Eurocup backdrop. Everybody discussing a very truncated race and very difficult conditions. So now what do I do, asks Victor Martins. He's being ushered up to the podium, and in the sunshine, this is a really spectacular place. It's been blisteringly hot weather all week, and of course as soon as it gets to race day, so the weather gods turn against us, as they did last year here. It was a very, very wet weekend at the Hungaroring a year ago, and the rain continues to fall. It's not the rate at which it falls, it's the standing water now that's the problem, because it's not going anywhere, and a wet road is just getting wetter and wetter and wetter. So we have a little time before the podium, as now the drivers arrive in the cool-down room and all the officials are ready. It doesn't take a huge amount of working out for the Renault Sport people. The top three and the winning rookie are there. The drivers all being presented with their BRM watch, championship partner, so a watch to the top three that they will proudly wear on the podium. And Hankook Victor's caps placed upon their heads as well. That should mean that everybody can now step forward for the presentations. Victor Martins looks at the results. He will now see, of course, Oscar Piastri didn't finish, didn't start even, but 25 points becomes 12.5, and it means that he makes an indentation rather than a big bite into that deficit to the championship leader. MP Motorsport taking another victory, and the team will be represented on the podium as well. Alexander Smolyar and the two Renault Sport Academy drivers. Victor Martins explaining exactly how sideways one could go. Caio Collet, the winning rookie, and Renault Sport Academy fellow Victor Martins for the outright win. So I think everybody is ready to go. Drivers present and correct. Winning team, all the Renault Sport dignitaries. And the drivers now are being called forward. So for a race win, Victor Martins. For second place, Alexander Smolyar. And third is Lorenzo Colombo then. The Italian driver steps forward, out onto the podium. The Russian driver, Alexander Smolyar, takes second place and ventures out onto the podium, along with race winner Victor Martins, his second victory of the season, and Caio Collet, as the winning rookie, will go to the podium as well. And so too, for our race GP, will a representative of that winning squad to celebrate at the end of the 13th race in this year's Formula Renault Eurocup. So Victor Martins takes the race win, and the drivers then now ready to receive trophies. Victor Martins, Alexander Smolyar, Lorenzo Colombo and Kyle Collett all there, as Lorenzo Colombo gets the third placed trophy from Tamas Vachtler, General Manager of Renault in Hungary. Then for second place, Alexander Smolyar gets the trophy from Tariq Said, the sporting manager of Renault Sport Racing, who looked after all the Renault activities, race and rally, of course. There's a successful one-make rally programme still as well. Victor Martins there to receive the winner's trophy. And Victor Martins taking honours, the gap in material, but it was a second, such as it mattered at all at the end of the race. From Hankook's point of view, there's the winning rookie trophy. Kyle Collett receives that. And there'll be the team's trophy as well to go on the mantelpiece at our Ace GP, at MP Motorsport, I should say, forgive me, which breaks the monopoly of late of our Ace. Sander Dawson's squad getting another victory. Drivers all get together on the top step of the podium, and there Victor Martins scores honours in race one of the weekend here, double header as ever, so one today, one tomorrow. And they will have the second qualifying session to determine tomorrow's grid bright and early tomorrow morning. Champagne is there if they're not wet enough. Kai Collett says, no, you're joking. Lorenzo Colombo's had enough, and Alexander Smolyar and Victor Martins do enjoy themselves. Victor at least getting into the race this week. So last weekend it was a turbo problem that prevented him from taking part. Today he wins a race all behind the safety car, championship rival Oscar Piastri on the sidelines, and we'll see what tomorrow brings, hopefully in the dry. For now, from the Hungaroring and David Addison, cheerio.